And as we come on the air tonight, the United States has unleashed a major attack that's lasting several hours on Iran. The Pentagon says American forces are striking multiple targets in response to, quote, Iran's unwarranted and continued aggression. Iranian media has been reporting explosions at several locations along the Persian Gulf, while sharing images of what they say is a reservoir of drinking water that they argue was destroyed by a U.S. missile. When you look at this picture, experts tell CNN that the munitions fragments at that scene that you see here do appear to be from a U.S.-made bomb. Now, President Trump is arguing that this new round of strikes is in retaliation for Iran downing a U.S. helicopter that had 2 service members on board in recent days. Both of them were rescued, and initially the president told the Wall Street Journal that, quote, it wasn't a big deal. Now he's saying this.
We're going to be attacking them and attacking them very hard.
You're resuming bombing?
Yeah, well, we are. Based on the helicopter, I guess we have the right to do that.
Central Command will be busy tonight because President Trump said we will be hitting Iran hard, and we will be. Because Iran has a chance to make a good deal, a great deal, to codify what they said they've been willing to do, and they haven't been willing to do it.
Now, today the president also argued about Iran, quote, they've taken too long to negotiate a deal that would have been great for them. Now they will have to pay the price. It's a sentiment that he echoed tonight during a phone call with a Fox News reporter from the White House Situation Room.
President Trump told me that Iran called him tonight. Top Iranian officials and President Trump spoke directly, according to the commander-in-chief tonight, as the president was sitting in the Situation Room. And he told me that the Iranians asked them to stop bombing. And the president said to me, the bombing will stop shortly. I asked him what will happen if the Iranians do not sign an agreement that was put forward by American negotiators. President Trump said, quote, we'll bomb the S out of them tomorrow night.
So the president is saying that's why the bombing is happening. And yet U.S. Central Command is describing tonight's attacks as self-defense strikes. If you listen to the defense secretary, though, the strikes sure sound like offensive strategy.
You can see when someone's trying to tap, tap, tap on a deal. Instead, they're going to have tap, tap, tap bombs dropping on key facilities in Iran from the United States of America. If we need to negotiate with bombs, we'll negotiate with bombs. And we're very good at it.
Now, as for what this means for the ceasefire that the administration has been arguing is still holding, despite the fire certainly not ceasing, the president said this tonight.
I asked the president if the ceasefire is over. He told me this was the most violated ceasefire in the history of the world.
Welcome back, everyone. Kaitlan is hosting MTG tonight, and honestly, I don't know how to feel about her. I do feel sorry that she's out of the movement, but I think part of it is her own choosing. Let me know what you think down in the comment section.
And I'm joined now by former Republican Congresswoman from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And thank you for being back here on The Source. You know, when it comes to what's happening in Iran, the president has been going back and forth between predicting peace and also bombing Iran again, as they're doing tonight. Does it appear to you that the president has fully thought through what he is doing with this war?
No, and this war shouldn't be happening. This was a major campaign promise in 2024 to end foreign wars, to not be involved in them. This is something that President has promised for many years. He's on video. He's on record. He can't change any of his statements. He said no more foreign wars. So it shouldn't even be happening. But it is hard to take the so-called peace talks serious when every single time he claims they're close to making a deal, which I think at this point has been close to 40 times, Israel starts bombing Lebanon again, and then the bombs start firing in both directions. So no, it's really hard to take it serious, and it doesn't seem that the president wants the war to end. And like he said today, he doesn't even care that inflation is high.
Well, I mean, and on inflation, obviously, we've seen where that is right now. But you mentioned the campaign promises, and you campaigned with the president when he was running, obviously not just in 2024, but in his previous elections. He was asked recently about that key promise that he made to voters, and he said this.
One of your consistent campaign promises was no new wars, going all the way back to 2015. Did you break that promise to the American people?
No. I had to stop a country, very powerful, very dangerous country, from having a nuclear weapon because they'd use it.
What changed? Because you insisted no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war. Why would I have built the strongest military in the world? I built our military.
I mean, when you hear that at the end, that he didn't guarantee no war, I mean, how do you hear that?
Well, I hear it the way that he said it so many times in the past. You know, I don't think the president's comms team is doing him any favors. After that interview came out and he's on record claiming he never said that he wouldn't go to war, no more foreign wars. You know, people rolled out video after video of him saying on the campaign trail, just like I heard him say personally so many times as I campaigned with him, where he said, no more foreign wars, I will end war, I will bring world peace. He said that over and over again, and there was video montage after video montage, and shame on his team for not showing him those videos of what he said and what he promised to the American people, because it's making him look like a fool.
I mean, do you think he remembers making that promise, or do you think he didn't mean it when he made it, or what's your read of it?
I agree. Trump did promise no new war, and this is a new war, but I think we need to understand that no new war is not something any leader of any nation can promise, because you do war with some other nations. So it also depends on what the other nations do. And so in his position, Trump, knowing what he knows, getting the intel that he gets as the president of the United States, he made an executive decision, literally, to start this war. And, you know, it's not something we can criticize. We can criticize how the process is going, how the comms are coming out. But no new war is not a promise any leader of any nation can promise. That's number one. And on inflation and the Strait of Hormuz closure, we need to understand, yes, the Americans are hurting through, you know, increased bills and gas prices and whatnot. But whenever we think of the Iran war, we need to think, the first thing we need to think about is China. This war, and even just the closure of the strait, is putting an immense economic pressure on China, because they're getting 90% of the Iranian oil. And once the closure is in place, China is hurting immediately, because their economy runs on the Iranian oil, the cheap, illegal, below the market price oil from Iran is what fuels the Chinese economy. So literally, this is an economic war between the United States and China, and this can only be a good thing for the US long term. And also, on the Iran side, they are getting this closure, not even just the casualties on the soil, on the Iranian soil. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is literally devastating the economy of Iran. So the US is doing something right with a minimal impact on the US citizens on the US soil. So we need to appreciate this fact.
I'm not really sure. But I think that, you know, his team, his staff, who is supposed to help the president, advise the president, and make sure that he is truthful and honest and transparent with the American people, they should be showing him his previous videos, because the internet does not forgive. And the internet is making sure that his previous statements of no more foreign wars, bringing world peace, those are everywhere. And so I think his team needs to make sure he knows what his previous statements are.
You mentioned inflation, and today it came out that it's at the highest pace that it's been in 3 years, fueled because of the war in Iran. And the president was asked about how he responded to that number today, and this is what he told reporters.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it.
for
The numbers were
Republicans
great.
in terms of trying to hold
You know what I
up the
really
House and
love?
Senate?
I love the inflation. You know why? Because as soon as this war is over, you know, I can say it now. Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil. Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran, until right now.
Were you surprised to hear him say that he loves inflation?
Yeah, I found that shocking. You know, I remember during the Biden administration, that was one of the biggest issues that MAGA, all of us, would scream at the top of our lungs about, and we called it Biden inflation. And the president campaigned against Joe Biden because of the inflation that happened while the Democrats were in control back in 2022, 2023. But hear the president say today that he loves inflation is absolutely outrageous. And that's a punch in the gut to every single American that is struggling to pay their bills, struggling to pay grocery prices, and struggling to basically keep up while their credit card debt is mounting and mounting. You know, it's pretty hard to take from a billionaire president when he says he loves inflation brought on the American people because of a war that he decided to pursue. And, you know, that one's going to come back and bite him. He basically just handed the Democrats a great big campaign ad for the 2026 midterms.
There's also a new report out today, an extensive report that's in the New York Times, and it's based on Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan's upcoming new book that's about to be published called Regime Change. And they write in this new report today about how the release of the Epstein files, debating over how to handle Jeffrey Epstein, basically paralyzed the White House. And there were meetings in the Situation Room even where obviously, you know, of the utmost national security concern, meetings pertaining to that happened. When you read that and you hear that the president's team, the vice president, the chief of staff, everyone's meeting inside the sit room about Jeffrey Epstein, what does it tell you about how they viewed that story?
Well, unfortunately, that's not new news to me. Unfortunately, that was something that I lived through. I watched the Speaker of the House shut down the government for and keep the House completely out of session for 8 weeks in the fall of 2025, simply because he was under orders of the president and his team not to do anything in the House of Representatives because they were doing everything they could do to stop that resolution from passing the House. The same resolution that I signed the discharge petition to force to a vote on the floor. I'm not surprised by this news, Kaitlan, because I also had a very uncomfortable phone call with the president before the release of the Epstein files, where he told me that his friends would get hurt if the files were released, and I'll never forget that. I'll also never forget the text message he sent me when I told him that my son's life was being threatened because he was calling me a traitor because I fought to release the Epstein files, where he told me that I deserved it. And so this doesn't shock me that his team was paralyzed. But I tell you what it is, it's absolutely ridiculous and unforgivable. We're talking about pedophiles and rapists of the elite class of people that never get held accountable for anything. So if they were paralyzed and scared and didn't know what to do about releasing the Epstein files, these people are absolutely absurd. They don't deserve the American people's trust. As a matter of fact, we should consider them as they should be considered traitors. They're traitors. The ones that refuse to release the Epstein files want to cover up for pedophiles and rapists and all sorts of disgusting things in these files. Those are the traitors to the American people, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
I mean, this report basically says it was the president who didn't want anything released. Are you saying that applies to the president himself?
I'm saying exactly that. He told me on the phone that his friends would get hurt, and that's why he's against releasing the Epstein files. And I think we've seen a lot of that dribble out. So, yeah, it all matches. It completely adds up. From the phone call that I had with the president to this report that is coming out, it all lines up.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable to hear you say that you think the president is a traitor.
What is remarkable to me is that this administration, people that we voted for, demanding transparency, the man that campaigned all over the country claiming that he would be the one to drain the swamp, is the very man that fought to keep the Epstein files from being released. And then he in turn called me the traitor because I fought to release the Epstein files. You know, many people have turned and said, oh, she's a Democrat now. I'm not a Democrat. Nothing changed about my views. I'm unapologetically America first. As a matter of fact, I've taken off the Tea Party jerseys. I don't want anything to do with any of them. I'm straight down the line, strictly for the American people. But it's been shocking to people, many people that voted for Donald Trump, many people that voted Republican, that they would actually follow through to try to cover up the Epstein files. And that's the part that everyone just can't even understand.
And when you read this report, it says that the vice president suggested having Tucker Carlson interview Ghislaine Maxwell to have her clear the president's name publicly. Do you think that would have been helpful had that gone forth?
I understand that the Epstein files is the point of contention between the ex-MAGAs and the current MAGAs, but it's as if people don't want to remember it is Trump that released it at all. The files came out because Trump signed the release into law, and his Justice Department is the one that produced them. So Trump delivered them. Not Obama, not Biden, it is Trump that delivered the files at all. I guess people are complaining about the degree of redaction and the lack of adjudication. That's fair. But people complaining about Trump not releasing the Epstein files is just completely, simply lying to you. Trump released it. Hello? And on the adjudication, I understand people need to pay the price for it. But just because your names appear on the file doesn't mean you can go to prison. It triggers the investigation, but the procedural fairness also needs to be attended to. So when people are simply complaining about Trump not releasing the Epstein files, they're just throwing tantrum. Can we all agree on that?
Well, Tucker didn't interview Ghislaine Maxwell, did he? So, yeah, the fact that that didn't happen should speak volumes for Tucker Carlson. And it also shows the lengths they were willing to go to try to find someone trustworthy to the American people to try to extend this cover-up. And the American people just aren't buying it. This has been the top issue ever since it started. It should have never been a fight. It should have been the easiest thing to happen. And I'll point something else out. No one has been held accountable for the Epstein files. Nobody. In other countries, there's people that have been arrested, people that have been forced to step down. Here in America, we haven't seen any justice for the victims. And that's because look who's in charge. They're not being prosecuted. They're not being held accountable. And I think that comes from the top.
I mean, it ended up being Todd Blanche who interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell. She was subsequently moved to a lower security prison. He's now been named as the Attorney General. If you were in the Senate, would you vote to confirm him based on this?
Well, you know, he's the acting Attorney General, and the fact that she was moved, Ghislaine Maxwell, just to be specific, was moved to a minimum or a lesser secure prison, a more comfortable prison. That was something that I remember the Epstein victims saying upset them greatly, because they said that she was responsible for a lot of the crimes committed against them. So they were appalled by that. But I'm not in the Senate. I don't get to make that vote.
You mentioned the discharge petition, the reason that these Epstein files did get released, and it's only because of the efforts of a few of you on Capitol Hill who initially led this. Last night, Nancy Mace lost her race. She was running for governor in South Carolina in the Republican primary. But because of that, that means that the 4 House Republicans who backed this, you, Nancy Mace, and Thomas Massie, only Lauren Boebert is going to be in Congress for the Republicans after this term. What do you think the impact of that is?
Well, let's also make it very clear. Lauren Boebert, the president, also put out a Truth Social saying who could he support and primary her. So she's not out of the crosshairs either. I think what MAGA needs to realize and wake up and see very clearly is President Trump hasn't brought any accountability against any of the Democrats that he campaigned and went so hard against. None of the Democrats on the January 6th committee have been held accountable. No one has been prosecuted for the stolen election of 2020. No one has been held accountable for all the crimes against humanity, for COVID. No one has been held accountable for all of these issues. But he has targeted 4 Republicans harder than he has ever come against any Democrat, and that's myself, Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. Why? Because we fought to release the Epstein files. And I think that is the story that people need to pay attention to, because that tells more truth about Donald Trump than it will ever tell you on Truth Social.
As I said, the files are released, and they're released by Trump. And I'm genuinely sorry to see Marjorie being bitter and out of the movement, because I think she's a nice lady. But I think politics is also very much about loyalty. So if we look at Marco Rubio, I love the guy. I think he's competent. I'm proud of him. And if we remember 2016, he and Trump went at each other as hard as two people can. It was personal. It was brutal. It was ugly. And now Rubio is the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor and many, many, many other positions at the same time. He's very much trusted by Trump. And they have a good rapport at the moment. More than a rapport, friendship, I would say. J.D. Vance is the same. He was a never Trumper guy, and he even called Trump reprehensible. But now he's the Vice President of the United States. So I think the way to operate in the highest echelon of the politics is you do need to be behind the leader, because MAGA is a Trump movement. It's not just about America first. It is Trump's brand. If you you know it, Marjorie. To pretend it's otherwise is a bit childish. So the thing about it is, I don't even know what she's trying to gain out of all this, because I don't know what her cause is. And on Thomas Massie didn't get booted because he called for Epstein files. He got booted because he voted consistently against Trump in Congress. So you can't do that in a safe seat, because your party needs to trust on you. They need to bank on your vote. So let's not pretend as if the political machine doesn't need your loyalty. If you enjoyed my breakdown, please subscribe so you won't miss the next episode. I'll see you in the next one.